So, let's talk about a name you might not know, but probably should. Shiro Ishii. He was the mind behind a biological warfare program so terrifying, he actually called it the secret of secrets. We're going to peel back the layers on one of the 20th century's most horrifying, yet strangely hidden, war criminals.
And here's the real kicker, the central question of this whole story. This guy, he was responsible for the deaths of over 500,000 people. I mean, think about that number. And yet, he was never tried for his crimes, not a single day in court. So, how on earth does that happen?
All right, to get to the bottom of that mystery, we have to go back. We need to understand the man himself, Shiro Ishii, and the absolute horror he created.
You know, monsters like this aren't just born in a vacuum. To really get Ishii, you have to look at the world he grew up in, a Japan that was rapidly changing, buzzing with this intense, almost feverish sense of national pride and imperial ambition.
Yeah, this timeline here really paints a picture. He's born in 1892, right into a wealthy, powerful family. Japan is in the middle of this massive modernization effort, the Meiji Restoration, basically rocketing itself onto the world stage. Then, as a kid, he sees Japan defeat Russia in a war, a huge shock to the world. That victory pumped up this idea of Japanese superiority, and you can bet that idea got lodged deep inside his head.
And make no mistake, the guy was a genius. Like, memorizing entire books, brilliant. But, and this is a big but, that brilliance came with a dark side. He was incredibly arrogant, power-hungry, and just plain ruthless. He wasn't afraid to use his friends or break all the rules to climb the ladder, all because he truly believed he was smarter and better than everyone else.
So you've got this brilliant, arrogant guy. How does he pivot to, well, this? It all started with a really twisted idea he got from the most unlikely of places, an international peace treaty. He's reading a report on the 1925 Geneva Convention. You know, the one that banned germ warfare. Now, most people would see that and think, okay, this stuff is horrible, we can't ever use it. But not Ishii. He saw something completely different. He saw a massive opportunity.
In this quote, this says it all really. He basically said, hey, if the big powers of the world bothered to outlaw biological weapons, they must be incredibly powerful. His logic was completely backward. The fact that they were banned was, to him, the ultimate proof of just how effective they could be, a real game changer for Japan.
And this wasn't just some crazy idea he had. The man was a schemer. He goes on this 2-year world tour, studying what everyone else is doing with bioweapons. Then he comes back to Japan, which by 1930 is pretty much run by the military. He gives them the perfect sales pitch. It's cheap, it's terrifying, and it'll give Japan an unbeatable edge. And yeah, the military brass, they bought it hook, line, and sinker. So, with a blank check from the government, Ishii takes his project to occupied Manchuria in China. And this is where everything goes from dark theory to unimaginable real-world horror on actual people. And to cover up what he was doing, he invented this whole deceptive language. The camps weren't death camps, they were epidemic prevention units. The prisoners, and we're talking men, women, and children here, they weren't called prisoners, they were called maruta. That means logs in Japanese, just pieces of wood to be used and discarded. And research, that was their word for torture, vivisection, and infecting people with deadly diseases.
The absolute epicenter of all this evil was Unit 731. It was a massive complex near the city of Harbin, a place called Pingfan. You have to imagine it. It was basically a small city, a factory of death built for one single purpose: to turn human beings into weapons of mass destruction.
And this factory needed raw materials. Even at one of the earlier, smaller camps, they kept 500 to 600 people captive at all times, a constantly rotating stock of human lives, just waiting for the next experiment.
It was just so systematic and cruel. They'd even make sure the prisoners were healthy just so they could get better data when they deliberately infected them with things like anthrax, cholera, or the plague. Survival was not the goal. Most people didn't last more than 30 days. And at the main Unit 731 facility at Pingfan, the number of known survivors is 0. Not a single one. Once you were inside those walls, there was no getting out alive.
But here's the thing you have to understand. This wasn't just about sick experiments in a lab. The whole point, the entire endgame for Ishii, was to take these diseases, weaponize them, and unleash them on cities full of innocent people.
And they did it. Just look at this timeline of terror. In 1940, they're dropping clay bombs full of plague-infested fleas from airplanes onto Chinese cities. In 42, it's cholera bombs. When the Japanese army was retreating, Ishii's units would deliberately contaminate wells and set plague-carrying rats loose to cause epidemics in their wake. It was pure bioterrorism.
So what's the final body count? Well, it's just staggering. The most conservative estimates, the lowest numbers, put the death toll from this program at over 500,000 people. And honestly, the real number could be much, much higher.
Okay, so that brings us right back to where we started. All of this horror, all of this death, Japan surrenders. So how in the world did Shiro Ishii get away with it? Well, it comes down to two things: a desperate cover-up and a very, very cold-blooded deal. The second the war starts to turn, as the Soviets are closing in on Manchuria, Ishii goes into panic mode. He gives the order: destroy everything. Burn the entire Pingfan facility to the ground and, the most chilling part, kill every single remaining prisoner. Leave no evidence. Leave no witnesses. And this might be the most sickening twist in the whole story. At the exact same time that Nazi doctors are on trial in Nuremberg for their human experiments and being executed for them, the United States is cutting a secret deal. They went to Ishii and his top scientists and said, "Give us all your data, everything you learned from torturing and killing all those people, and in return, we'll make sure you never face prosecution. Full immunity."
And that was it. The deal was done. Shiro Ishii, the architect of this whole nightmare, just went home. He lived out his days a free man, never charged with a single crime. He died peacefully of throat cancer in 1959.
So we're left with this really ugly question, aren't we? The US wanted that data. They thought it would give them a leg up on the Soviets in the new Cold War. But was it worth it? Is any scientific data, no matter how valuable you think it is, worth trading for justice? Worth letting a man like Shiro Ishii get away with it all? That's a question that honestly is just as relevant today as it was back then.